Welcome to Pioneers in Payments, where payments experts share their insights. Now, here's our host, Donna Blum.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Pioneers in Payments. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Lavonne Heaviland from FirstBank. Welcome, Lavonne.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, I'm so glad you were able to join us. I work pretty closely with one of your colleagues in the U.S. Faster Payment Council. It's the Operational Considerations for Instant and Immediate Payments Work Group. That's a mouthful, but anyways, you and I just met recently, and I'm so glad that you've joined us here on the podcast. Lavonne, before we get started, though, I want to make sure that our audience knows a little bit about you, your background in the payments industry, and the work that you do at FirstBank.
Yeah, no, thank you again for the opportunity. So just to give a background on me. So I first stepped into payments beginning of my banking career over 20 years ago. I got the opportunity to manage our bank's debit and credit and ATM areas. And after that, I've been able to stick my toe into all other payment channels within the bank: wires, ACH, instant payments, and fraud prevention. One of the unique things, though, about FirstBank I think is interesting is we like to move our officers throughout the company, depending on what the company's needs are. So as a result, I've had also the opportunity to oversee and lead our consumer and commercial loan origination services, start up our anti-money laundering teams, manage our real estate valuations teams. And I think overall that experience has given me a unique perspective on how payments touch and impact every aspect of banking and how critical they are to support the success of our customers, consumers, businesses, government entities, you name it, across the board. My current role at FirstBank is President of Centralized Operations, and that means I oversee all payment processing for the bank, all fraud detection prevention, and along with some teams, including our reconciliation teams.
Wow, that is a lot of responsibility.
Yes, I enjoy it though. It's a lot of responsibility, but I also think it's a lot of fun. It keeps me engaged every day.
Never a dull moment, I'm sure. Well, that's fantastic. So really, the whole purpose of this podcast is to gain the perspective of people who are really pioneers in the industry and um, really want to get your perspective on all that you feel is, the most notable trends and opportunities in the industry today. It's obviously changing very rapidly, but today, what would you say is the most notable trend in the payments industry?
So this is probably something that you hear from others as well. I think the advancement and adoption of artificial intelligence, whether it be Gen AI, machine learning, is really one of the most exciting trends that we're experiencing. And that includes how we can leverage just the vast amounts of data we have on how customers move money, what they're doing with their day-to-day lives, and how we can use that to implement ways to enhance their customer experience, suggest new product services, really help them on their road to being financially successful. But then we can also leverage that to really improve a lot of our fraud detection prevention schemes with our tools within the entire organization. So a few of the things I was thinking about with that is, if you think about customer behavior and how if somebody is falling victim to a fraud scheme or scam, or if they're just really struggling on their role for financial service independence and success, they're not just using one siloed payments channel. They're using all payment channels. They're interacting with the payment processor, financial institution in a number of different ways. And we have the ability to leverage and really all of those tools, those advanced tools, to upskill our teams and really meet our customers where they need to be met.
That's great. Yes. I actually AI has not been something that too many of the guests have talked about. It's actually really something that has become a hot topic, I would say, within the last 6 months or so. I mean, I know it's been around for a lot longer than that, but as I go to events, AI has become one of the primary topics, and
Oh,
it
yes.
it's amazing what it can do to help advance the industry.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be careful how you implement it. You need to make sure you're not creating a situation where the AI is hallucinating, that it's putting you in a position where, you're impacting your customers negatively. But I think it's a fantastic opportunity.
I agree. I agree. Okay, so the next question is, with all that's going on in the industry today, what is the top opportunity for organizations that are processing payments?
So I think we have access to so much data on our customers, and it's across the board. I think we're in a position where we must and should be using that data to implement ways to enhance the customer experience. And I touched on this lightly just a second ago, but you think if you can use that data to implement intelligent payment routing, offer products, service enhancements, making sure you're analyzing your customer behavior across all channels that they're interacting with you, both onboarding with authentication to then money movement channels to what are they doing if they're visiting branches, if you're a financial institution, or how are they interacting with you online. It can help you to really surface and resolve unnecessary friction and keep that customer long term and attract new customers. But you can really leverage that too to stop and detect fraudulent activity.
That's so true. Very good. Okay, so that's the biggest opportunity. What would you say is the greatest challenge?
So I'd go back to the fraud side for the greatest challenge. You think about the AI. The fraudsters are leveraging artificial intelligence and really leaning into advancing the innovation schemes. Their increased sophistication is really concerning. It's making it harder and harder to detect. It used to be you'd have the grammatical errors in the emails, or you'd have somebody that couldn't quite verbalize what they needed because they might be, their native language might be something different. And so it's a little bit easier to question and unpack and dig a little to see if you're truly dealing with your customer or not. Now it's harder and harder because the fraudsters are able to easily innovate and adapt their schemes to make them seem more legitimate. And in the end, you honestly feel like you're dealing with your customer because they may have phished your customer for that information, and your customer thought, oh, I'm dealing with my bank, or I had an unpaid toll bill that I needed to make sure I paid so I don't get, additional fines. Or maybe I thought I was being harassed by the IRS and they gave away their financial information. And then the fraudsters turning around and using that to move funds illicitly. And so I think that's where it's really becoming a challenge. And I think to layer onto that, faster payments, that is a huge opportunity we have within the United States to really make sure that we can move money quickly. And you're moving money, not just moving money from institution to institution, but you're also moving the settlement instantaneously as well. But you can't turn away from the fact that faster payments does mean faster fraud. And it means that we all have to lean into innovation. We have to clarify payment expectations, add additional friction whenever it's necessary, and do what we can to enhance our authentication. That includes like biometric identification, account ownership, and making sure you're layering in those additional tools.
Yeah. When I think about security, you don't have just one lock on your house, for example, right? Like you've got layers of security, and that's what's needed by financial institutions too, right? And really, I would imagine you're hoping to accomplish is to deter the fraudsters from you know, targeting your organization because it's just too difficult, right? So they're going to go elsewhere. But the other challenge, and you alluded to this, is, educating your clients so that they don't get, they're not taken advantage of. They're not fooled. And, I would imagine that can be a little bit tricky, especially with maybe perhaps some of the older generations, that aren't quite as technologically savvy. So you definitely have your work cut out for you there.
Oh, it is. And you bring up a great point. I mean, customer education is so critical.
Yeah.
And you have to touch customers across the board through social media, emails, sometimes even physical letters if somebody's not online, and just making sure they're aware of what schemes might be out there and how to protect themselves. One of the things that we like to use internally at FirstBank is, customers are in the best role to protect themselves against financial fraud. And it's really equivalent to putting on your seatbelt before you drive your car. If you can put on your seatbelt and always be vigilant, then you're going to be in a much better position of not being harmed in the end if something were to happen. So, but yeah, I think that education is so, so critical, and it's at every aspect too. And we're learning you have to educate, even if there's a payment being made, and interdicting and being able to reach out to your customer in that moment to notify them, hey, this looks odd. Are you sure you're meaning to do this? Is this really you?
Right, right. Yeah, I can see AI playing a big role in that too, to identify anomalies in customer behavior, right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it's based on the individual customer's profile too, which can be exciting, that you can really detect those anomalies based on what they typically do or do not do, and not just more of on a general basis.
I was just thinking something as simple as, if you saw something turn up where I was purchasing, cat products and cat food. I'm highly allergic to cats. I've never owned a cat. You would probably be able to, who knows if it'll get to that level of detail, but it's a possibility, right?
Absolutely, it's a possibility. And that goes to the data that we have access to. How can we mine that, use that, and not just use it for fraud prevention, but how can we use that to make sure we enhance our services and really provide additional value to our customers?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we've talked about opportunities, challenges. What would you say is your silver bullet piece of advice to organizations that process payments?
Oh, so I think I had trouble narrowing this down to just one. I think the one thing I would mention is, your advancement in technology is fantastic. And a lot of us put our hats on the efficiency hat on whenever we're thinking about technology advancements. I would say, I don't think we can lose sight on how critical it is to maintain a knowledgeable team that can take the alerts or take the activity that they're seeing or manage the systems and make sure that they're able to critically examine a situation, troubleshoot, and really make a difference for our customers or even the success of the organization. It's one of those that's a great opportunity. You can upskill your team, but you still need that team there because that human context is so critical. The other part I was struggling with balancing in this is, you also have, it's critical for all in the payments industry to really make sure that we're advocating for the industry and really engaging our lawmakers. And that's one of my personal passions as well. I just feel it's critical because if we're vocal, then we can encourage our lawmakers to focus on collaborative policies that really truly support the long-term success of everybody that's in the payments industry.
Yeah, I think that's great. All of us, and that's, I mentioned the FPC earlier. That's sort of part of what they do. It's really a very collaborative effort. Everybody involved is really, they're not in it just for their own organization's benefit. They're really trying to work together to advance the payments industry as a whole. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's
It's a
very
great
good.
organization. Yeah. I think the FPC does fantastic work.
I do too. All right. Well, before I let you go, Lavonne, I wanted to make sure that our audience knows how they can learn more about FirstBank, perhaps get in touch with you, learn about your services. What information would you like to share with our audience?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Donna. So if you want to learn more about FirstBank, I would say go to our website, www.efirstbank.com, and first is spelled out. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I'm on LinkedIn, Lavonne Heaviland, and I'm happy to engage in open conversations. If anybody wants to talk about payments, fraud, advocacy, you name it.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, Lavonne, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your insights. And I also want to thank everybody for watching today. Have a wonderful day.